Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is that you are, wherever you may be. Thank you very much for making us a part of your day. I am Brad Franklin, Digital Media Relations Manager here in Chesterfield. Very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. Now, it is, there's a crispness in the air. This is like perfect me season right now where it's like, yeah, it might get to like quite 80, but you know, most days it's going to be kind of cool and the nights are chilly and the air doesn't have to turn on, which means that it is time to check in on high school football across the county. We are doing this podcast literally after what could be, might be, has been at least the biggest game of the season on Friday night as we record this on Monday morning. I'm very glad to welcome Jim McConnell, creative content right here in Chesterfield. Always appreciate his time on these shows. How you going, my friend?
Very well. How are you, Brad?
Doing well, man. Appreciate the time. Like I said, I always love the chance to get in here and talk about football with you. It's an interesting season so far in a lot of ways because some of the things that we talked about in the preseason have come true. Some of the things we expected to happen have not happened. But it is an interesting season nonetheless. Well, we're going to primarily focus on 5 of the teams of our 10, in large part because of the seasons they've had so far. So at this point, Thomasdale is 5-0, Manchester 6-0, Meadowbrook is at 4-1. They're third in 5C. Midlothian and James River are both 4-2, and they are 4th and 5th in 5C respectively. Jim, overall, what stands out to you about that group of 5? Because it certainly feels like Friday night's Meadowbrook and Thomasdale game. I mean, it was a classic. It felt like in a lot of ways. What overall, what stands out to you about this group of 5 in the season that they've had so far? And we'll get into the specifics on each team in a minute. But just overall, what stands out to you the most?
Yeah, I think that mostly it's just that I think what we expected has mostly sort of come true, with a few exceptions both ways, to the good and to the not so good. I think we're sitting here halfway through the season, kind of going, yeah, we were pretty good in the preseason.
Right.
The teams we thought were good
are pretty good.
Are good.
Yeah. And maybe some of the unexpected is more about sort of maybe the traditional sense. Not like, right. So like Bird is 3-3 and they've got a shot in 6A. Matoka's obviously having a really rough year after losing so many of its pieces from last season. Let's start with Manchester. They're 6-0 in 6A. They put 83 on Monacan. Then they beat Glen Allen 25-22. They beat James River 34-13. Beat Clover Hill and Cosby, put 50 on both of those, and then just are coming off of a game against Midlothian, which is not. I mean, Midlothian's not a bad team, but to win 43-0 against Midlothian is pretty impressive. They've outscored their last of 3 opponents 147-13. Obviously, with those 2 shutouts. Overall, at this point, Manchester has to be sort of, I guess you could say, the class of the county. With Dale like right there, and especially because of who Dale's beaten. That's the thing that stands out to me the most, is that, with no disrespect intended here to Midlothian, but Manchester has won largely, other than Glen Allen, against teams that otherwise it should beat, and it's done it in gaudy ways, and that certainly is impacting its stats. Overall, what's your sort of point of view on Manchester right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say starting to kind of maybe give off some vibes from the similarities to the 2018 team that, went undefeated and pretty much did smoke everyone in their path, going undefeated and winning state title.
Right.
But as you point out, no offense to any of these schools. Now, Glen Allen is a legit
for sure
team.
Sure. Yeah.
They're very, very, very good.
And 25-22, as the score would imply, yeah. it was a nip tuck.
And it was a last second field goal, and so it came down to the end. I will note that, for your benefit, Chesterfield is 2-0. Chesterfield schools are 2-0 against Glen Allen this year. Thomasdale also beat them. So those are good wins.
For no particular reason at all.
No particular. But no, when you think about Manchester, to have a senior quarterback, now I don't think, with no offense to Landon Abernathy, it would be kind of unfair to compare him to Brendan Clark, who ended up getting a ride to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So, but there's a similarity in that they play the same sort of role in the offense. They're going
Right.
to spread you out,
Right.
and he's going to find the open guy, and he's going to throw the ball to the open guy.
Yeah.
And they have so much athleticism on the outside. It's kind of like I kind of think about like when you used to play in the neighborhood with your friends, and there was no real pass rush, and it was just pick an open guy and just chuck it as far.
Yeah.
Like, how fun that must be to be the quarterback in that system, because you're just looking around, you're like, oh, he's open, but oh, he's more open.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to throw it to him instead.
Yeah.
They're a really fun team. They can put up a lot of points.
Well, and look, you think about a team that's given up 13, 22, 13, 0, 0, and 13. All right, to put that in context, I don't care who you're playing. Right, because eventually, especially in some of these like blowouts, you're playing some of your backup guys for a good part, if not most of the game. Right. To put that in some context too, against Midlothian, which is probably we can probably quibble about whether Midlow's better than Glen Allen or vice versa, but the Trojans didn't have a first down until the 5th possession, and I think that speaks to sort of one. This is not just that Abernathy's throwing the ball all over the field. He's chucking the thing all over the yard. And they're having a great season because of that offense. But the defense is not too shabby either. And this complementary football, I think that is the secret here. And that's certainly something that as we go forward, we're going to be interested to see. The remaining games, Friday night, they'll get Bird. They play at Bird. They play at Powhatan. The next week they go to what used to be George Wythe, Richmond City. I guess what is the Richmond High School of the Arts, whatever. And then they get Huguenot to end the season, which is now 4-1. Let's move over to Dale. They're 5-0. They're coming off of wins against Cosby, Bird, Glen Allen, Prince George, and Meadowbrook, as we mentioned, 16-8 on Friday night. Cole is killing it right now. Had the game-winning touchdown run with 14 seconds left against Meadowbrook, which is a heartbreaker for them, and we'll get to them in a minute. Overall, general thoughts on kind of where Dale is right now at 5-0.
I think they have to be feeling, really good about their position. Their defense, I mean, like, I don't know, like, how ubiquitous nicknames are in high school football and the Richmond region or whatever, but everybody around here knows the dark zone defense.
The dark zone, it's incredible. That's just so cool.
And they always seem to have this suffocating, physical, nasty defense. I mean, what they did to Meadowbrook, and I will predict right now that
breaking news, folks.
Meadowbrook is an incredibly talented team. They are going to make the playoffs, and I think they're probably going to win at least a game.
Yeah.
They're very, very talented.
Yeah.
What Thomas Dale did to them Friday night, holding them to 8 points,
is crazy.
Crazy impressive.
Yeah. And like we said, an instant classic in a lot of ways because of that, right? And the defense is what sort of set up that touchdown, right? They had a safety, and then they had a late interception that put them there. The rest of their games, they got Matoka on Friday night, then they get they go to Dinwiddie, they go to Patrick Henry, which is at 1-4. The differences between the two Patrick Henrys this year's phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
Then you get Petersburg on the road as well before you close out with Hopewell. An interesting sort of first start to the season, some good teams, maybe not quite as dominant as Manchester's been, but as you said, maybe they've played the better teams and they have come out on top. So, I think that's something to watch certainly as we go forward, is whether or not Dale can sort of keep it up. And as you mentioned, whether that defense can sort of keep flexing. Let's go to Meadowbrook next. They went into Friday night's game 4-0 for the first time since 2011, which for the record, folks, was a long time ago. They opened the season with a 60-0 win over Clover Hill. They beat Kecoughtan 41-0. They beat Deep Run 23-14. They beat Hopewell 48-13, and of course they lost to Dale on Friday night 16-8. It's an interesting sort of way for things to go there, because we know, as we've talked about the last couple of years, right? What Meadowbrook is trying to do and get back to its roots and things certainly feels like if they're not there, they're right there on the doorstep. And this season so far has been proof positive of that.
Absolutely. And the excitement that comes with being able to host a big game like that, where you, like, when you talk about the crispness in the air and the feel in it, it's when you've hit that point where you've kind of arrived, when everybody in the school's excited and you're looking forward to this big game. And win or lose, I think Meadowbrook made a very clear statement about its intentions.
Yeah.
because as we noted, Dale is really, really good.
Yeah.
And they stood toe to toe with them for the entire. I mean, they gave up the winning touchdown with 14 seconds left.
And then to be sort of relying on some younger kids, right? So a couple of important sophomores on that offense. I think that's the thing that's interesting to me, is that it's not just so much about like, oh, they've got a really talented group that's been playing together for 8 years since like Little League, right? Like they've done a really nice job of putting a true program together, and it's starting to really show sort of what that can look like. And as you said, I think to be able to step up and play in that kind of environment, in that kind of game, I mean, one play is a huge difference. Don't get me wrong, and that late interception was key. But man, there are lots of good things coming for them, and that seems pretty clear. They got Prince George left, Petersburg left. They get Dinwiddie, Colonial Heights, and of course Matoka at the end of the season. Let's actually start with move to maybe what is the surprise of the group at James River at 4-2. They started out beating Greensville County 59-34 in Emporia, which I don't know why anyone would do that. They beat Cosby. They lost to Manchester, but they beat Monica and Clover Hill, and then they lost to Powhatan last week. This is easily the surprise team of the first half of the season. They've already doubled last season's win total despite being on their third quarterback because of injuries. How surprised are you at what you've seen from James River so far this year?
Let me go with gobsmacked. I love that word, and it really does capture the level of just sheer amazement.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys over there are getting everything they possibly can out of. They're young, and they're already they were already really, really young, and then they got beat up.
Yeah.
And it happens. I think we might have actually talked about this in the preseason, when you are relying on young guys who haven't had 3 and 4 years to get in the weight room and get their bodies right. You can get beat up very easily.
Yeah.
But that coaching staff is getting everything, every ounce of whatever you call it, out of those kids. It's amazing. I mean, they are a goal line stand last Friday away from being 5-1.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think outside of their own locker room, I mean, you might have polled their parents, and they might not have even thought that's possible.
But it's like, what is the Ted KGB says in Rounders? You got alligator blood. I mean, they just have they've done a really nice job of hanging around, and I'm interested to see where they go from here. So they get formerly known as they get a game at Midlothian, which I think is going to be really interesting to watch. They get Huguenot, and they go to Burr to end the season. Speaking of Midlothian, they're at 4-2. They won. They beat Bird 19-0 to open the season. Then they beat Douglas Freeman. Powhatan, formerly known as they lost to Huguenot 57-7, and then of course Manchester. So Midlothian had it kind of cooking, and then the last 2 games have gone really against them, as you can kind of tell, between a 57-7 and a 43-0. Do you think that is a sign of a swoon, or is this just you had 2 bad weeks and you're hoping to flush it and move on to the next?
I think they played 2 of the best teams.
Yeah.
Huguenot's loaded.
Huguenot's
too.
crazy, yeah.
And I think it exposed a little something about Midlothian that, no offense to Midlothian, it exposed something about a lot of teams, which is that when you were playing a team with a veteran quarterback who can really sling it and a bunch of athletes on the outside, like that's the kryptonite for a lot of teams, right? Team speed. But I do think that it sort of showed Midlothian, when you can spread them out and make them run.
Yeah.
It's now, how many teams are going to be able to do it to the level of Huguenot, which has maybe the region's best quarterback?
I think so.
Charles Scott.
Yeah.
He's incredibly
he's
good.
super talented, and he's got pieces around him. It's not just like he's out there with a piece of masking tape and some bubble gum. I mean, he's got a wealth of options. Let's just say. The thing that's crazy is to go from your first 4 games, you're plus 120 to 16, and then go down 100. You know what I mean? It's that kind of flip flop. I'm not saying that this is what I expect, but there are a lot of times where teams that happens and it's hard to come back. Now they get Clover Hill on Friday night, who is right now sitting at 0-5. Then they get Cosby, who's sitting right now at 2-4. They do get James River and then Monacan. So they do have some important games to the end of the season. It'll be really interesting to see sort of how that unfolds, because, you should find out real quick whether or not this is going to be one of those things kind of just fell apart a little bit at the seams and guys just weren't able to come back, or if they're able to sort of rally the troops, and to borrow another cliche, circle the wagons, right? I mean, I think that's the real key facing them as they go into their next couple games. We'll close out the majority of this with LC Bird sitting at 3-3. Of course, they lost to Midlothian 19-0 to open the season, and then lost to Thomas Dale 21-0 the next week before they beat Monacan 46-6. They beat Powhatan 28-12. They beat formerly known as Wythe 49-26, and then of course lost to Huguenot 28-3, which 28-3 is not great, but it's not as, I've seen Huguenot put up some huge numbers. So I think that's a credit to the Skyhawks there. They haven't beaten a team with a winning record this season, and they've been outscored 68-3 by Midlow, Thomasdale, and Huguenot. So I mean, that's, it's tough to open the schedule with the two teams you open the schedule with here. They rebound a little bit, and then they've got obviously some important games ahead. Give me some thoughts on Bird right now.
I mean, this game Friday against Manchester is huge for any number of reasons, but the PowerPoints that would come from trying to figure out a way to beat Manchester, which is currently undefeated, would be a huge boost to Bird's playoff chances.
And when Jim mentions PowerPoints there, so one of the things, and I don't want to get into try to explain the math of this all, but basically the gist of it is that the VHSL tries to balance out when you beat a good team, as I think computer systems and algorithms are trying to do across all levels of sports these days, right? But basically PowerPoint, the idea is that like if you beat a good team like a Manchester, it does a lot more for you than if you beat the snot out of somebody who's not very good. So, I mean, that's just a general point. So, all right, sorry, continue.
No, not at all. So, I know Bird is not really used to being in the situation where, when the weather turns a little chilly and we flip the calendar to October, starting to look at playoff implications, because they're usually, up at the top. And they're thinking about home games and making practice plans for Thanksgiving and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to do some work against the back half of this schedule. I think they can probably still get in if they don't win Friday.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to run the table the rest of the way.
Oh, yeah, they'd have to sweep it.
They have no real room for margin for error anymore.
I think that the one of those three losses, if it's two of them, they might be in a different spot. But three of them, you're at 3-3. I think you have to sweep Clover Hill, Cosby, James River to make the playoffs. And I mean, that James River game is going to be huge because, as we talked about a minute ago, James River is a very different team maybe than they've been. So I mean, that's kind of where things stand right now. We've got 5-6 teams or so that we're sort of tracking middle of the season on to see what the playoff situation looks like. That tends to be roughly about what we look at. Maybe some years Chesterfield gets another team or two into the playoffs, roughly depending on sort of how things are stacked. Might be a little different now with Matoka being in 5C where they are now. And obviously, it's been a tough year for them, as we said, given some of the losses that they've experienced, in terms of talent in the program. But Jim will be back in a few weeks to talk a little bit more about sort of where things are with the playoffs at that point ahead of us. But very much appreciate the time, as always.
All right. Thanks, Brad. It was fun.
All right. Make sure you check us out on social media. On Twitter, it's at Chesterfield VA, and on Instagram, it's Chesterfield, Virginia, one word. And on Facebook, you can check out our podcast page. Just search Chesterfield Behind the Mic. Now, make sure to follow or subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, or wherever it is that your shows are sold. And if you're so inclined to give us a rating or review, we'd greatly appreciate it. As always, a video version of our show is available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website at Chesterfield.gov/podcast. That's also where you can submit feedback anytime, make a suggestion, or just reach out to us. You can watch the show on WCCT Thursday through Sunday at 7, on the weekends at noon. That is Comcast Channel 98 and Verizon Channel 28. Lastly, check out Chesterfield.gov/connect with us to find a number of other ways to connect with Chesterfield County. Thanks to my director, Martin Stith, my executive producer, Teresa, Bonifas, and all the good folks from Stitching Media Services for all they do. And my thanks to you for joining us today. So, from all of us here in Chesterfield, thanks again for making this a part of your day. We'll see you again real soon. Take good care.
From blogs to podcasts. And I'm very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again.
Weekly video segments and newsletters.
Social media, the latest community news.
And this is your Chesterfield News Minute for September 19th.
How to get in touch, and everything in between. If you want to know about Chesterfield County, our Connect With Us webpage has you covered. Chesterfield.gov/connect with us. Connect with us, your source for all things Chesterfield.